a little deeper than that. It'd be complete.
Why doesn't this kid play any good games at all? How do I get him to play something I want him to play? I have an idea. There you are.
Hey guys, welcome back to Crystalized. Today we'll be reviewing Neil's book. What was that noise? It's a box. What's in here? Spider-Man PS4? Hang on a second, there's a note.
If you play this game and review it, I will do anything for you.
Anything, huh? So I made Sky watch the entirety of Kaguya-sama. We'll check in on him later. But, in return, he made me play through Spider-Man PS4, a Game of the Year nominee back in 2018. I've actually had this game for a while, but I've just never committed to playing it. I'm going in with a bit of Spider-Man knowledge. I've watched through both of the Spider-Verse movies, and I've watched the entire trilogy of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. Will I enjoy this game, even though arguably I'm not its target audience? Well, it really won Game of the Year, right? The Game Awards never have bad opinions! Let's start with the story. Coming into this game, I heard a lot of people praised this game for its compelling story and how it is a bit of a love letter to Spider-Man fans. So you can probably understand why I thought this story was, well, fine. The story follows the Spider-Man format pretty much to a T. Spider-Man has to save New York from big bad villains, and it looks really bad at one point and he might give up, but he perseveres through the pain. He also nearly breaks up with MJ. That's also a requirement for every story. It's a little bit more in-depth than that, but that's the basics. I was unfortunately in the middle ground where, since I had the background of some Spider-Man knowledge, I kinda could've told you what was going to happen next for about 50% of the game, but not a big enough fan where I was like, wow, this is such a great representation of their character! The game does have some places where it diverges from normal Spider-Man lore, but it follows it mostly. The story does have some emotional moments, and I thought the characters they showed were well written, but it didn't really hit peak fiction levels for me. I think that's in part because I wasn't a Spider-Man nerd coming in, and that's okay. It's still enjoyable to play through even if you aren't a huge fan. In fact, I think if you go in blind, I think you'll actually enjoy it a lot. But at least for me, it came out as a fine part of the game that doesn't take anything away and is enjoyable. So, personally, when I play video games, I like going to places I can't ever go in real life. Like a whimsical world. A really immersive world. So why the frick am I in freaking New York hanging out with sewer rats? Look at the rat! Obviously, Spider-Man is from New York. The game takes place in New York, and apparently, it's actually a really good copy of it. Which is insane, and it all looks really good, even for a PS4 game. If we were playing any normal game, we'd have to walk, or ride a taxi. That's cringe. Instead, we swing around using Spider-Man's web swinging ability. Or you can walk around if you really want to, and be a good citizen of New York if that's what you're into. The web swinging ability does feel really good. It does take a while to get used to, and you will smack your face into buildings quite a bit when you start out. But since this is your only realistic way to get around quickly in the game, you will slowly get better since you will be using this to explore and get from mission to mission. The swinging feels fluid, and it does use momentum-based swinging, so your timing your releases so you can fly as far as possible does feel incredibly satisfying. You also have other moves, like if you press X you can pull a short distance forward, or if you press L2 and R2 on an object, you can immediately zip to that object, and then point launch off of it pressing X while zipping there. My point is, each ability combines to make swinging as fluid as possible. There's never really a hitch or stop unless the player makes a mistake. It's honestly really fun. I enjoyed exploring in this game a lot more than I expected because of how good it feels. Even though the game is built around it being quick and fluid by being a really big world, it doesn't feel like it takes too long to get from point A to point B. I feel similarly about this exploration to Sonic Frontiers, where their exploration is fun because I can get to the places I want to go to fast enough where it doesn't feel like a slog. And there are a ton of things to explore and do in this game, like a ton. Literally, you can look for backpacks, stop crime, go into criminal hideouts, military hideouts, take out mercenaries, do requests from citizens, take pictures of famous places, do science, unblock radio towers, and take pictures of cat plushies. It sounds like a lot because it is. This game has a ton of side content, but I won't talk about all of them. However, I'll talk about the ones I found to be most notable. The requests from citizens are this game's version of side quests. They usually take anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes unless it's a game-long fetch quest, in which case, good luck. Do I look like someone who can catch a pigeon? I can barely catch a frying pan. But they are pretty fun to go through in general. Some of them are fetch quests, which admittedly aren't that fun even in Spider-Man, but they do make the world feel more alive and make you feel more like a superhero helping the regular citizens of the city. The backpacks are more for the die-hard fans of Spider-Man. You can find them throughout the city in random locations. Out of the 60 plus backpacks scattered throughout New York, they all contain references and deep cuts that fans of the series will enjoy viewing. Peter always has a quip or two about the event the item is from, which adds extra context to why it exists. I personally thought the items were cool, but no real attachment to them since, you know, I'm not a Spider-Man nerd. But I think it's cool that they added these for the diehards, and you can just find them in normal gameplay without going out of your way most of the time, so it's not a nuisance to collect. I should mention that the locations of everything you can collect or do in the game can be shown for a few seconds in live time by simply pressing R3. This was something I really liked because I didn't need to look up an online guide for where everything was. This was a necessity in a game with this many collectibles, and it was implemented smoothly and seamlessly. Finally, the hideouts were also something I enjoyed doing. You'd infiltrate their base and then sneakily take out each of the guards one by one. Well, that's what the game wanted you to do, but stealth is for losers, so I never did that unless it was literally required. It really was a great place for the combat in this game to shine and added a unique challenge. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about the combat yet, but first, let's check in on our buddy Sky and see how the anime watching is going. Hey man, how's it going?
I went to Harvard, and I have a degree in anime phobia, Crystalized. You know this. Why would you make me do this, Crystalized?
Listen, Sky, it can't be that bad. Joyce and I really liked the show.
Crystalized, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do this, man.
Well, listen, Sky, like in your favorite song, Undefeatable, you'll have to face your fears at some point. I'll leave you to it.
No!
Sounds like he's having a great time, but now let's talk about the combat in the game. This was the part of the game that everyone said was immaculate. The combat was the highlight of this game, with that being what so many people said they enjoyed the most about this game. And well, I'm inclined to agree with the crowd on this one. Much like the exploration and web swinging in this game, each hit feels satisfying and flows really well. There isn't a dull moment. You're on to fighting the next guy or comboing the guy you just hit into some other attack. Initially, I was not a huge fan of the combat, but it grew on me as I got better and learned how to deal with certain enemies. Dodging also feels incredible as well. In order to dodge, you press circle and hold a direction, and Spider-Man will dodge. Since you're most of the time fighting hordes of enemies, it is necessary to have some kind of indicator of when attacks that you can't see are going to hit you. That's where Spidey Sense comes in, as before an attack is about to hit you, a small white indicator will surround Spider-Man's head, which indicates you need to move or dodge out of the way of something. It works surprisingly well, and you get used to keeping your eyes on Spider-Man at points to make sure you're not about to get blasted. My one complaint with the dodge system is that I wish there was a way you could have the indicator be bigger or take up a larger part of the screen. In the midst of fighting 10 plus enemies, it can sometimes be hard to see the indicator. It being white and somewhat transparent makes it not annoying to look at during combat, but it is also a detriment when you can't literally see it because it's so small and there's 20 things happening on your screen. I had a few deaths due to not being able to see it, but it was not a game-breaking or deal-breaking issue. What could have been a deal-breaker though was the inclusion of a Battle Pass, a staple of 21st century games. Luckily there is no Battle Pass, and instead we got the other staple, a skill tree. You level up Spider-Man by doing various things like side quests, stopping crimes, and doing story missions. Each level up you get a skill point, which you can use to unlock special abilities in the skill tree. There are 3 categories, which are Defender, Innovator, and Web Slinger. Defender gives you abilities that help you avoid attacks, Innovator gives you new ways to attack, and Web Slinger is mostly just for movement abilities. You can go about spending your skill points in any way you want, to fit your playstyle. The skill tree is not something that the player has to rely on to beat the game. It just gives you benefits that help make the game easier. And you can unlock new stuff without going out of your way to do too much. You just get skill points after each level up. I'm usually indifferent to skill trees, but this one was implemented well in my opinion. There's also other things you can do to make your combat easier, such as suits. I never used this mechanic for the most part. Basically, by getting tokens from doing the fun exploration stuff I mentioned earlier, you can unlock suits that give you one special ability that you can use when your meter is full, which you fill by doing combat stuff. All of these suits are references, which is great because I don't get most of them. You don't have to wear the suit to use the special ability you unlocked with it. You can mix and match abilities and suits however you like, which is a great quality of life feature. I only unlocked one suit throughout my entire playthrough because it had the best ability and didn't bother with the others because I just didn't care and didn't want to use my tokens there. But I can definitely see a bigger Spider-Man fan being incredibly pleased with the suit choices and how it's implemented. Okay, I've held off on talking about this for a while now. Let's talk about the gadgets. I think that they are implemented horrendously. You unlock these after playing the game for a bit, and can be incredibly useful. Gadgets like the Suspension Matrix can be useful for getting rid of large groups of enemies, and can pull off cool combos by using multiple gadgets, which become more effective and cooler when you upgrade them. But you know how I've been praising this game consistently for its incredible flow, where there doesn't feel like there's a dull moment and everything flows together which makes it all feel natural? This is the antithesis of that. To use gadgets, you have to hold down L1, go to a scroll wheel, select the gadget you want, let go of L1, use the gadget, then hold L1 again to use another gadget, and the cycle repeats. It feels kinda like this. Hey man, what's up? Oh, hey man. Should I ask him how his day is, or maybe how his dog is doing? Maybe I should ask about his favorite ice cream place. Okay, now I think I've decided. How you doing? What? It completely breaks up the flow of the game because time slows down dramatically while in the scroll wheel, which is necessary because if not, you'd be beat up every time you went into the menu, but it also breaks the flow, which this game does so well. You really can't win in this situation. I opted not to use the gadgets if possible because of this issue. I found it more annoying than not to open the menu to use them. I only began to use them once it was near required by the game late game. The web slingers just weren't cutting it. And I saw the potential. It was fun to use them, but it was super annoying to open the scroll wheel each time I wanted to use one. I wish they would have implemented them like Kingdom Hearts does, where you can have a button combo to press to activate an item or attack. You only really use 3 or 4 of the gadgets in a fight anyway, so it would have been seamless when you used a gadget without breaking the flow like the scroll wheel does. Other than that and the occasional death because of too much happening on screen, the combat in this game is flawless. It was incredibly fun. I didn't know where else to put these sections, so here they are. The Metal Gear Solid side game that appears. So a couple of times throughout the game you will have to play as either MJ or Miles on a stealth mission, meaning if you get caught once, you're dead. I found these missions to be more annoying than not most of the time. As mentioned before, I made stealth an optional feature on the Spider-Man missions that featured it, so you can probably guess my feelings on these. However, I will say that the last few missions were actually kind of fun once they introduced the lure mechanic. It added depth to it that was desperately needed, because before that, it was just figure out their cycles and slip in between the game. It was a nice change of pace, as was the coding segments Peter does in the lab from time to time. I wouldn't say either of these were outstanding pieces of work that added incredible value to the game, but they were nice. What did add incredible value was me being able to throw trash at New York civilians. Hey, what's that noise? So did the Game Awards lie when this was nominated for Game of the Year? Nah, it deserved it. It's truly amazing how this could run on PS4 given how much the game does. I only suffered it freezing like twice for 5 to 10 seconds, but that's it. I would like to mention that I didn't do like 30% of the side content stuff in this game, and it already took me like nearly 13 hours to beat this game. The side content easily adds like another 10 hours, and there's also DLC I didn't play. I didn't feel like spending $30 on it, but that also adds like another additional 10 hours to the game. But despite that, I would rate this game a 4 out of 5. The story didn't necessarily do it for me, the combat wheel is atrociously implemented, and the early stealth missions are annoying. But other than that, I really don't have any complaints about this game. It was genuinely a lot of fun, and now that it's nearly 5 years old, you can find this for pretty cheap physically. I would recommend this game if you like action or open world games, and I would especially recommend it if you're a Spider-Man fan and you still somehow haven't picked up this game. What do you know, Sky actually recommended me a pretty decent game. Hey, I wonder how he's doing. Let me call him. Hey Sky, what's up? Sky, you okay?